So,
Hi.
hi. We are going to go over our brackets for this week, and then you actually have a food disaster.
This is a food disaster heist.
Ooh,
sort of.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll do the bad story idea. So today is Free Fall Burrito World, which
Such a classic.
is a classic. I can't believe you like it as much as you do. But it's a world where everyone's in free fall. The 7-layer burrito is your addition to this.
Yeah, that's what I love about it, is that you came up with this very compelling idea about a world in constant free fall, and then I ruined it with 7-layer burrito.
And it really would be 7-layer dip, not really burrito, but versus Haunted by a Body, not a spirit, an actual body.
Yeah.
Which I still think someday maybe I'll write that story. I don't know. The idea that there's just a corpse everywhere you look, that it's not sapient, it can't talk to you, it's just there haunting
it's just
you.
there. And I remember the couple paragraphs you wrote of that, and it was delightful. All right, here we go. You ready for this?
Yep.
Our food heist bracket this week. You get to vote between pure illegal butter guarantee. This is when somebody stole $150,000 of pure Canadian butter in a very well-planned heist.
Okay.
Which we thought maybe that was for like a mafia.
Wait, is that the right one?
Yeah, that's the one that's marked here.
Okay.
Pure illegal butter guarantee.
Okay.
Yeah, so like some organized crime ring has a movie theater where they make sure to have illegally sourced butter.
Yep.
We don't know what that butter was used for. And then up against 700 gallons of rancid fry oil.
Okay, that's the one I had glanced at the thing and seen, and so I was like, wait, this is Michelle Pfeiffer feeds.
Michelle Pfeiffer, we have assumed from Dangerous Minds that she's the one stealing 700 gallons of fry oil to teach students about reducing and reusing and biofuels. So, those are our food heists for the bracket.
All right, so go please vote for us.
Yes.
We actually are on a little bit of a time crunch today, which is why we're moving a little faster through this.
Yeah, this is what we look like when we're focused.
We're focused. We're focused.
We're ready.
Food disaster heist.
All right. So remember when we had a food heist that was perpetrated by elephants?
Yes. The snackoderms, one of my favorites.
Today we have a food heist perpetrated by a bear.
Oh, okay.
This was in Steamboat Springs in Colorado just a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
Bear broke into a house, ate a bunch of pork chops, wandered around for a while, got himself locked into the master bedroom, and then escaped through the window.
Okay.
And there's video of him escaping out the window. I'm watching it right now, and it's wonderful.
Was the house owned by someone named Goldilocks?
I have to assume that it was. The police are not saying anything, but
Revenge of the Bear.
Yeah. It does say the neighbor's name, but it doesn't. This article's not telling me the. Yeah. So, he went out of the bedroom window and decided it was too high, and then he went back in. The officer at that point had opened the door, and so the bear was like, okay, and he went downstairs. And then went out the first floor window where he had initially got through in the first place. Oh, no. The owner is Ryan McFarlane.
Okay, so maybe related.
Maybe,
to Goldilocks.
Maybe married to Goldilocks.
Yeah.
But
so this, can we call this the Beargler?
The Beargler?
Is this allowed, or slant rhymes just...
Oh, that's not a slant rhyme. I don't know what that is.
No,
it's delightful is what it is.
Yeah.
That's even easier to pronounce than the Barrelionaire.
Have we talked about the Barrelionaire?
On this show, I don't think we've talked about the Barrelionaire.
Okay, I have to tell the Barrelionaire story. Okay?
You have to, because it's wonderful.
I'm sorry for those with sensitive ears. But once upon a time, and I'm sorry if anyone's heard this story before, once upon a time, Amazon would let you rank, it would show an author's ranking. Right? They took this down probably because I was one of very few people who paid attention to it, but it lists who sold that week the most books by author. And I was always very interested in this because I was on that list.
Yeah.
I was often in the 20s, inching toward the teens, right? And watching and seeing who I was near and will I break the top 10? And I never managed to break the top 10 unless It was a new week.
So it was a debut week.
Debut week, so I'd break the top 10.
This was also the period of Amazon, and maybe this is still true, but there would be fads.
Yes.
Where 1 or 2 or maybe 3 things would just sell like hotcakes for a couple of weeks, and then the market would move on to something else.
Yep. And so I would watch this and be like, all right, who else is selling where I am? And these sorts of things. It's just kind of a fun thing to say, hey, I'm the number 12 author in the country this week. That was nifty. And so one time I was looking and I ran across a book that has been forever sealed in my memory because what was really popular were 2 fads at this point. There were billionaire romance. We'll call them romance with quotation marks because of 50 Shades of Grey.
Often erotica.
Yes.
But yeah, that counts as romance.
Yes, it's a subgenre of romance. And then that was kind of really big. And the other thing that was really big was shapeshifters. Right?
And the kind of overlap between these is I want to be swept off my feet by a sexy billionaire versus I want to be swept off my feet by a sexy werewolf.
Yes. And the name of this book, as Dan had said earlier, was Barrelionaire.
Barrelionaire. The perfect Venn diagram overlap of the 2 biggest fads in fiction at the time.
Read the pitch of it at the top. It's like, she is a sexy accountant. He is the owner of Bearfield Park and also a werebear. Does she know that she is destined to be his mate forever? And how can he tell her that secretly he turns into a bear? And it is just, it reads like a parody.
Yes. And I want to be clear.
Yes.
We are not making fun of this book.
No, this
book is brilliant and amazing.
Yeah.
Being able to so perfectly identify that niche of the market and get a book out right when the iron is hot. It's phenomenal.
Ooh, I actually found it. I can read you the actual promo because it is the picture, Dan. The picture is bare-chested hottie pants guy and a cute little bear in the corner. It is just Bearstone Park. I got the bear.
Bearstone Park.
He's a billionaire and a bear, and he'd never let anything happen to his mate. When billionaire tech mogul Ryder Hart returns to Bearstone Park to settle his family estate, he isn't expecting to meet a beautiful, full-figured accountant that stops him in his tracks and makes him think he's found his mate for the first time in his life. Now, how can he explain to her that he can turn into a bear without scaring her off? I love that. I
look forward to writing something that good one day.
It brings joy to my heart that Barrelionaire exists. So there you go. So there's our story for the Beargler.
The Beargler. Yeah, that's the sequel to Barrelionaire, the Beargler, who is reduced to stealing pork chops to survive.
Well, what are we actually going to talk about today, Dan?
We are going to talk today about a movie that I have actually seen.
And I have actually seen.
Which is Tetris.
Tetris, the movie.
Yeah.
It's funny because you mentioned Tetris. To most people, they're like, they're making a movie out of Tetris. Because, Emoji Movie and stuff like that. The first time I heard Tetris, my mind went to the making of Tetris because it is such a famous story in the video game world.
Yeah.
And I've read multiple essays, or, essays is the wrong term, right? Like new articles and things like this and interviews with the people involved. And it is such a fascinating story that I immediately went, oh,
yeah.
Why did I not think of that? That's a genius. You should be totally making a movie about Tetris.
Yeah. Fantastic little bit of historical fiction, mostly true.
Yes.
The thing is, if you remember the original Tetris used Russian music, that's because it was designed by a Russian programmer at the height of the USSR Cold War. And the fact that somehow became the biggest video game in the world is actually a really compelling story that we've kind of been sitting on for years, and someone turned it into a movie that I thought was great.
Movie is fantastic.
Take some liberties.
We'll talk about that in the spoiler section, but also film, it's just really fun. Yeah. Right? Like they filmed it in a fun way. They made it really interesting. I like kind of they use some 8-bit visuals occasionally and things in it just to give a little bit more of a I don't know, a little surreal feel to it at places that helps with you understanding, look, this is mostly a true story, but this part maybe not. And just really like the film. Highly recommend it.
Yeah. So kind of the basic premise of the story, American dude married to a Japanese woman, living in Tokyo, working in the nascent gaming industry. He had programmed his own version of Go and things like that.
Yep. This is after the Atari crash, when Nintendo has kind of resuscitated the market.
Yeah. And so there's home gaming and there's console gaming, PC gaming, and various things. And it's very key to the story right at the start of handheld gaming.
Yep.
While he is in the process of trying to negotiate the rights to get this Soviet game is when he is able to learn that Nintendo's working on a Game Boy, which would revolutionize the gaming industry.
And this is, you say the height of Russia. It's like right post the height. It's about to collapse.
No, that's true. Yeah.
The collapse
Failing
is coming.
Russia, which I think is also key to the story because 70s Russia would not have allowed this to happen.
Yep.
80s Russia absolutely was ready for a change.
Yep. And lots of people wanting fingers in this pot, and the interesting aspects. It reads like, if you read the actual accounts, it reads a bit like a spy thriller or a spy movie, but one of kind of the slower paced sort of spy movie. Like not as many thriller aspects, but a lot of just like espionage and double dealing and people struggling to figure this out, and Russia realizing they have a massive hit on their hands, and what do they do in a non-capitalist society, and all of that stuff is all fascinating.
Yeah. The movie, like we said, it takes some liberties. There's probably not an actual KGB car chase in the real story.
Now you're in spoilers. We were going to talk about that in spoilers. Okay. You can't talk about that till spoilers. Yeah, you're spoiling.
Forget I said that.
I forget you said that. All right, spoilers. So there was no KGB car chase.
No.
So as I understand, the entire evil KGB guy is made up. He's the only character that is 100% fabricated.
Yeah.
But
for example, the translator who turned out to be a KGB informant, she was a real person.
She was a real person, and she was KGB.
Yeah.
As I recall, he knew that all of these translators probably had ties to the government, and he picked one anyway. So it wasn't like he gets shocked that there's a KGB agent. But he legit had a KGB agent as a translator. He legit went to the place to try to meet the people where she said, you cannot go in there. And he just did anyway.
Yeah.
The stupidest thing in the world. Just walk in communist Russia and to a place that you've been told by someone who is essentially a government official that you should not go into.
Yeah.
Just walked right in.
Well, and with the wrong visa. He was on a traveling visa, not a business visa.
Yep. And somehow
committing so many crimes.
Did not end up in a gulag, and that's amusing. As I recall, I went and read about, I'm like, I don't remember the car chase. I don't remember this guy. And I went and read, and that guy was fabricated, and they said, it was tense getting out of the country, but it wasn't a car chase.
Yeah. I will say that car chase was one of the most delightful sequences of the movie.
Right.
As a culmination of the story. I mean, really, everything that's important to happen has already happened, right?
Yep.
And so they just throw in the thrilling car chase, which they intermixed with all of the 8-bit graphics and the video game noises.
Yep.
And usually I find action scenes in general to be really dull. But what I love is when they show me something I've never seen before. And this absolutely did.
I had never seen, and that I also I was watching, I'm like, I don't think this part really happened. But this is we're in Fantasyland now. It's got all of these. It actually helped my suspension of disbelief by making it more fantastical for that little sequence.
To have the little computer graphics come into it and everything.
And I really loved the whole player 1, player 2, player 3, player 1 wins thing that they did the setup. It was a nice little addition. It worked really well for me. So
I was really delighted to find, because I didn't know the story super well. I knew a lot of the mess of getting it out. What I didn't realize until afterwards was the friendship it depicts between the American dude and the Russian programmer. They're actually still best friends today.
Yeah.
And they work together. They
started a company together.
And
they have the rights to Tetris right now.
Yeah.
It's their company, the Tetris company.
Please, Tetris guys, put out a real version of Tetris that isn't a stupid freemium mobile game.
Stupid freemium mobile games are the thing.
I know.
It would be nice.
Whatever. I was really glad to find that was a real part of the story. I also was delighted to find, after the fact, I was concerned a little bit at how deeply they were villainizing Robert Maxwell. Who was the guy who, the competing dude trying to buy the rights away from our hero.
Oh, you didn't know about him.
I read up on Robert Maxwell, and I'm like, oh, if anything, they went soft on him.
Yes, they went a little soft.
He was a monster in real life.
Absolute monster. Like, they don't even get into the depth of the amount of embezzlement he was involved in from his own employees.
Yeah.
And things like that. And they did, his son was acquitted on those charges, and the courts determined he didn't know about any of it, and they played that straight. They wove in how the son would not be involved and not know about any of this, which, I appreciate them sticking to the historical record when it came to actual personalities of people.
Yeah. Robert Maxwell's daughter, who did not appear in the movie at all, is Ghislaine Maxwell, who's been imprisoned for child sex trafficking. So it is not a great family.
Nope.
And they make great villains for the story.
Yes, indeed. That's so what else can we talk about this? I enjoyed kind of seeing the look at Russia as it was falling. I don't know how accurate that was but it really felt like this is an really interesting point in history and a culture that, we only knew surface level things about when we were growing up during that time. I can remember when these events happened, right? I can remember when the Iron Curtain fell and when the wall went down and when, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I was a teenager and seeing just kind of a glimpse of it, hopefully a little more accurate than the KGB guy thing, but
well, and what knowledge I have of the twilight of the Soviet Union does fit with this, whether the specific details were accurate or not. The idea that the people in power were losing the grip of their power. Other people were trying to, join the rest of the world instead of stay in their silo forever.
Well, and I know that the company that sold Tetris, the government thing, became a company in Russia and made a ton of money off of Tetris after the fall, became a privatized corporatization. So, and the guys in charge of that made bank.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I actually wonder how much a younger audience would like this Tetris movie, because you and I are like the perfect audience for it. We grew up with Tetris.
Do you have a Game Boy?
I didn't have a Game Boy, but we had it on NES.
I had it on Game Boy.
Played it all the time. We grew up in the Cold War, right? That was our childhood. And so everything about it, that era, the paranoia of it, all felt very familiar and comfortable in a weird way.
Right. And like when he walks into the government building, I'm like, you don't do that.
That's wrong. But I'm a sucker for Cold War stories. And specifically because I was a teenager when it fell apart, I'm a sucker for the fall of the Soviet Union stories.
Did you like Bridge of Spies as a?
Love Bridge of Spies.
It's a good movie.
GoldenEye is still one of my favorite Bond movies because it is specifically about the fall of the Soviet power and the rise of other people in its wake. That is just a fascinating period of history to me. And I thought that Tetris did a good job of conveying what some of that was like from the inside.
I will say that I did read that the wife in Tokyo says that KGB did show up at her house.
Really?
Yeah, that
I
was
totally
legit
assumed that was made up.
That's where they're kind of getting this from, that she said KGB showed up and asked questions about her husband and left her vaguely unsettled as if it would have been a threat. She didn't say they, as I read, like actually threatened them, but to have KGB show up at your house in Tokyo is an unsettling event, regardless of the context. And so that part, at least the only thing I've been able to find that they really did is they created this villain guy, and made him out to be made it have way more tension because there was villain guy doing villainous stuff.
Yeah. They needed a face to the threat rather than just vague Soviet bureaucracy.
Yeah.
And he made a very convenient way to kind of put on screen a lot of stuff that would have been understood from context at the time.
Do you remember where you were when the Iron Curtain fell?
When the wall fell?
When the wall fell. I can remember a distinct point when the wall fell.
Yeah, I can remember being in class at school and talking about it. I don't remember. It is not the event like the way the Challenger explosion was.
Yeah.
I can tell you day and time and place for that one.
Yeah.
Whereas I do remember when the wall started to fall, the kind of slow burn swell of joy around the world, that was very defining for me as a moment.
I can remember the exact moment because I was on I was out on a not scouting, but where the women are there, the girls are there too. Like
just a youth activity?
Yeah.
Field day or something?
We were sledding.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And they
have hills in Nebraska?
Yeah, they have. So here's the thing. You joke about that. Nebraska is actually way worse to drive in the winter than Utah because it's way hillier.
Really?
Lincoln is.
Okay.
They don't have large mountains, but man, there's hills all over the place. It's real dangerous.
Okay.
You'll slide all over the place.
Yeah, because here we're mostly just flat next to mountains. And there it's no mountains, but lots of hills. And so, the sledding was amazing in Nebraska. We had plenty of, and so we were out sledding and heard the news that the Berlin Wall had fell. And I don't know if I heard it right at the minute it did, right? Because that would have been in the evening. I don't know what time it was, but that's when I was told. Yeah.
So I just looked it up. It was November 9th that happened, which tracks with me being out sledding in Nebraska in November.
What was the exact year? Was it 88, 89?
89.
89. That's what I thought it was. So a few years ago, have you been back? Have you ever been to Berlin?
I have been to Berlin.
Visited any of the wall stuff there?
Yep.
In 2019, on the anniversary of the wall going down, they did a super cool thing. So all throughout Berlin, you can follow the wall because it's gone now. And sometimes it's obvious by architecture which side of the city was which. But for the most part, it's just one giant city. But they have this little kind of thing laid into the floor of the ground, the street that shows where it was. And what they did in 2019, which would have been the 40th or 30th anniversary, they put a row of red balloons following the entire perimeter of the wall. And then at the exact moment, whatever you just read, they released them all. And so the wall floated up into the sky. I thought I wasn't there because we'd already moved back to the U.S. by then, but
they have something like that in Warsaw also, where the ghetto was. It's marked in metal in the street.
Really?
You can stand and be like, this is where the wall between the ghetto and the outside was.
Yeah, that's cool. I have a big chunk certified with an authenticity certificate of the Berlin Wall sitting on my desk at home.
You can buy them every hotel I've ever stayed at.
Yep, they're everywhere.
That has chunks. So there's a big one at Microsoft. When I went to speak there, they had just like a huge chunk of the wall just in a lobby in case.
I've got a little one about this big, and then on my desk there's one about kind of cantaloupe sized. And I do still have the certificate. I doubt the graffiti on it is real. It looks very fake.
Does it?
But I don't doubt that it's actual cement from the wall. But I love that kind of stuff. I've lived in Germany, and I wrote a whole book about the Berlin Wall, which is not why we started off talking about Tetris. But go read my book, Ghost Station, which is a historical fiction book about the Berlin Wall. So, yay.
So, video games. You obviously like Tetris. You didn't? Did you ever play it on a Game Boy?
I did a few times at scout camps.
Because
pertinent to our previous episode.
Because I had one and my friend had one, and you could link them and play against each other, which was just so much fun. I remember playing Tetris at, let's see, it was Jeremy. It was I want to say it was like his bar mitzvah, which he shouldn't have been playing Tetris, but we went to the synagogue and he got to go, read. And so we watched him read, and then the two of us sat and played Tetris the rest of whatever was going on, because whatever was going on was really long, and we had to wait to get back to his house so we could get all the money.
Yeah.
And so, Jeremy and I playing Tetris at the synagogue. That's one of my memories.
No, I think I've said this before. We had an original Nintendo NES, and then I did not own another video game console until 5 years ago, when we got my son an Xbox for Christmas.
Okay.
I've always been PC gamer. But on that original Nintendo, we did have Tetris. And today, everyone's a gamer, right? Everyone has a phone with Candy Crush on it. Everyone plays. Yeah. There's actually more women own the Switch than men do, which I think is a fascinating statistic. But back in the 80s, that was not the case at all. And Tetris was the first one that really broke out. Like, my mom would sit and play Tetris. That was the first time I'd ever seen an adult playing a video game in my life.
Yeah, I appreciated the line he gave in the movie where it's like, I still see the blocks falling. Because that happens. Right, that happened to me.
Yeah,
it's like that's the only first time I remember like sitting down and still seeing the game, being like, "Whoa, something's weird." Like, I'm seeing blocks, I'm thinking blocks.
Yeah, well, and that's what he said to the Nintendo guys. Like, if you launch this with Mario on it or whatever, then all the people who already own a Nintendo will buy this. If you launch it with Tetris on it, everyone in the world is going to want one. And really, that's what happened. The strength of Tetris is arguably as important as just the invention of mobile gaming itself.
That one I read was a real quote that he actually said that.
I don't doubt it.
So nice little realism
little
to the
thing
movie
there.
What's your opinion on creative liberties in based on a true story sort of things?
Well, as I've said before, unfaithful adaptations are my jam, right? That's what I love to watch. But with real life stories, I think it's a little different than just adapting fiction. There are times when I can understand why, yes, you had to change some of the events in Argo in order to make the movie cool. But there are other times when it's like, come on, the dude was Latino and you cast Ben Affleck. That feels like maybe you're ignoring some important parts of the story.
It bothers me a little bit more when it's something like A Beautiful Mind. It's a really good film. But then reading about the person's real life and finding out that the movie lauded them to the point that it left out the scratch and dents that we all have, that bothers me a little bit more. Right? Like, it's like, if you're gonna take all this time to give us a picture of someone. I want to see some of those scratches and dents so that we know, about some of these things. That's the one. I don't mind creative liberties at all, but I don't want to feel like I'm getting some sort of deification of a character.
Well, and I think that is the natural inclination. Hollywood storytelling, you want that happy ending, you want the hero arc, which means we usually end up lionizing someone who doesn't deserve it. That's my greatest problem with Greatest Showman is, let's make this genuinely horrible person look like a fun protagonist because he's the main character.
Yeah. It's way worse in Greatest Showman than basically any other one that I like. But yes.
But in A Beautiful Mind, his wife, played by Jennifer Connelly, and I don't mind Jennifer Connelly. Any group that I am a part of is on some level a Jennifer Connelly fan club, just because I am in it.
Yep.
That said, again, his actual wife was Latina. And so, again, it's very weird casting, I think, in a lot of these cases.
And he cheated on her multiple times, and their relationship was very rocky, and leaving some of those aspects out to paint this kind of perfect sort of,
Although, at least as far as I'm aware, that is the movie where Connolly and Paul, what's his bucket, the Vision, where they met, and they've been married ever since.
There you go.
So,
Paul, what's his bucket? The Vision.
What's his name?
Paul.
I love him as an actor. Paul Bettany.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just funny for what's his bucket when he's a robot.
When he's a robot.
Yeah.
My book, Blacker Darkness, about the vampires, in my head as I was writing it, the part of John Keats was played by Paul Bettany.
That's a good cast.
Which doesn't really work because Paul Bettany's probably a full foot taller than John Keats was. He was very short. But that's the voice in my head as I wrote it. Here, let's talk about Diablo 4 for 5 minutes.
All right. You did your Diablo 4 thing. I haven't played this.
I know you haven't played it. Let's not talk about Diablo 4. Let's talk about Diablo 2, because that we played to exhaustion.
We did play that to exhaustion.
I mostly just want to talk about Diablo, but I know you haven't played the new one.
So I figure
we can talk about the old one for 4 minutes now.
You could talk about either Diablo that you want. I thought Diablo 2 was a great game.
Yeah.
It was right at the right time when we were all kind of playing games together. It was a good co-op game. Everyone still hates me because I prefer hardcore when, permadeath and things.
It made it hard to play with you.
Nobody else likes permadeath and hardcore, which I can totally understand, but they give you so many powers. The games are so easy unless there's some aspect.
There's some crazy. My bigger obstacle to playing with you guys was that I was the only one married.
Yeah.
And so I had a wife and kids. And so on the few occasions I was able to get on and play, you'd already played like 7 extra times and were 50 levels higher than me.
Yep. This is what happens when your friends are we're basically all graduated at that point, and we were just working jobs, and you had real life and we didn't.
But Diablo 4 does level scaling really, really well. That would not be a problem anymore.
Yeah, well, that's good. I haven't really played games since level scaling became a thing. I remember how excited you all were when City of Heroes introduced that, and you were all playing that.
It made it so nice to sidekick somebody, and then you could play no matter what the level was. Did you ever play Diablo 3?
I did not.
Okay.
Never touched it. I know Isaac played it, one of the few games that he's played. Kara, his wife, is the more active one. She's VP of merchandising and events here. She's more of a gamer than Isaac, but they played it. I just I had my fill in Diablo 2. I'm like, I don't need this again. I might play Diablo 4, but at the same time, the game.
I don't know what you would even play it on though, because you don't really do PC gaming anymore. Right?
I have a Steam Deck, but I can't play it on Steam Deck because so I have a PS5. I think
it's on consoles.
Played Elden Ring and nothing else so far.
You have an Elden Ring
Yes.
game.
I will eventually play something else on that. I have to finish Stormlight 5 before I'm playing any more games. But maybe I'll play. Maybe it'll go on the list after Tears of the Kingdom and all the
other stuff.
Elden Ring.
You're just gonna go on an absolute video gaming bender.
No, what'll probably happen is I will play one game and then I'll have to get back to other stuff, and most of these won't get played.
Yeah.
But I might try it. The thing is, I don't feel like these things are ever really balanced for the hardcore permadeath that I like.
Mm-hmm.
Like Diablo 2 never was. It was a bad experience for this because when you died in Diablo 2, it was like some weird thing happened. You lagged for a second and then you're dead.
Yeah.
It's not like you pushed the limit and then had risk reward and then chose risk and then the risk.
Yeah.
Like that's fun permadeath, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get worn out in resources and you're like, if I can just get here. Like those
if you know that it's a choice you made to go a little too far and try to get a little too much loot, then it feels good.
Then
if it's just you're first through the hole to fight Duriel.
Yep.
And you know that if you get too much lag, he's going to kill you instantly before your screen loads.
Mm-hmm. So I don't think these games are very well balanced for things like that in the same way that a lot of roguelikes are.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, there you go. There's your 5.
There's my 5 minutes.
5 minutes of Diablo.
I just wanted to bring it up because we played it so much in college. And I was so excited when the new one came out, and now I realized, well, actually, no, I'm not as into this anymore, and neither are any of my friends. So, yeah, this isn't going to be what I wanted it to be.
Maybe Ben will play it with you.
Maybe.